Hello, and welcome to the Plenty of Positivity podcast. I am your host, Courtney Beck, and today we have an incredible guest, Dr. Alfredo Borodowski. Dr. Alfredo is a consultant, keynote speaker, and expert in positive psychology and peak performance who helps leaders turn uncertainty into opportunity. For more than 30 years, he has worked with executives, companies, and nonprofits across the United States and Latin America, including organizations such as Motorola and Lenovo. He is the author of several books, including the forthcoming The Human Upgrade, The New Leadership for the AI Revolution. It is my absolute pleasure and honor to welcome Dr. Alfredo Borodowski.
Hi, Courtney. I am so glad to be here with you and everybody who's listening.
Alfredo, I am so excited for this podcast episode because my goodness, I had just spoke about it in the introduction, but you are an expert in positive psychology and peak performance, which is the perfect guest to be on the Plenty of Positivity podcast. So welcome.
Yes, when I first read about your podcast, Positivity, I also said I need to be there with Courtney. And that's why I immediately contacted you. Need to have a dialogue with you.
This is absolutely perfect, Alfredo. And I really am. I am thrilled to have you. We are going to dive into a multitude of topics today for our listeners. We're certainly going to spend time on a lot of life lessons, career experiences, and of course, focusing on positivity. So Alfredo, if you would not mind beginning with an introduction and a background of yourself.
Well, the accent is Buenos Aires, Argentina, where I was born, but I came to the States many years ago. I married my wife, who's American. I have 2 American kids, and I'm a grandfather. And I am an expert on positivity, positive psychology, the science of flourishing, and the science of resilience, optimism, hope. We in the last 20 years have decoded the mechanisms by which all those positive things work. Before that, we knew a lot from philosophy, from religion, but now we have a science. We can measure it, apply it with intentionality, a real revolution.
This is absolutely incredible. And I really do. I want to learn so much from you because I know, like you said, this is your expertise in positivity. And definitely this world needs more positivity, Alfredo. And so I would love to first dive into the topic of uncertainty. You have spent over 30 years helping leaders navigate uncertainty. And so I'm just really curious, what actually drew you specifically in this direction to help leaders?
Look, Courtney, I was diagnosed bipolar disorder. I went through a very, very high manic episode that got me arrested for impersonating a police officer. And I was taking the wrong medication. A retired policeman friend of mine gave me one of those shields, friends and family. Then I had the shield. I was bipolar without knowing it and taking the wrong medication. It was the perfect storm. And I began patrolling the highways of New York until I was arrested and lost my job, lost all the, contracts I had, lost most of my friends, my credibility. And I was front page of newspapers from Ireland to Japan. It just became viral, Courtney, and I went into deep depression for 8 months. I had court cases. I was unable to move, in complete darkness, even suicidal. I was hospitalized, and for the first time, I was diagnosed bipolar. That was a happy day for me, by the way. I was so happy to be bipolar because now I had a diagnosis. I can study it. I had a name, a category. I could connect with other people with bipolar. But I went to deep depression until one day I felt an energy and I stood from the sofa and I went upstairs to my study and I found something on my desk that would change my life. I opened a folder that I am not sure how it got there. And I saw the result of a test in positive psychology I had taken a few years before. And I read my top strengths: creativity, love of learning, curiosity, perseverance, and courage. And something was turned inside of me. And with depression, with court cases, I decided to go back to study. And I went back to get a master's in social work with a specialization on clinical therapy. And from there, I said, if my strength that I had forgotten gave me this energy and changed my life, everybody should own their own what we call character strengths of positive psychology. And since I make sure that at least one person a day, every day of my life, get their top strengths.
First off, what an incredibly powerful story to share with us. And I really think it speaks a lot to the fact that we each have a story within us that we have lived and how we have learned different lessons along the way, even discovering ourselves and who we are meant to become. And just as you mentioned, your focus now after going through that lived experience, what it's like to be at the bottom of the bottom, but then to rise up. And that's truly remarkable. I want to get into, but the idea of positivity, and you have an actual formula, which
Yes.
I found to be absolutely incredible. So it's positivity plus purpose equals peak performance. So Alfredo, I would love for you to speak about the formula, and also if anybody listening is maybe going through a difficult time, how they could turn their life around with the power of positivity.
Yes, there is a formula, begins with positivity, and positivity refers to the character strengths of positive psychology. There are 24 character strengths, and they are special because they are found across history and geography. Any culture you look at cherished these 24 character strengths, like humor, love of learning, appreciation of beauty, forgiveness, and everybody has them. All of us have the 24 character strengths, but 2/3 of people cannot recognize them in themselves. 2/3 of people. Then we have a blindness of knowing our own character strengths, and that means that most people are going through life 9 to 18 times below what they could achieve just by applying what they already have, which makes me crazy. Okay, I am really upset about it. Then the first thing we do is to own our top 5 character strengths out of the 25. 24, they are called the signature strengths. The signature strengths make you more energized, motivated, and authentic. And they get really all their strengths when they are used intentionally. And to use them intentionally, the first thing you do, you must know them. And I will tell everybody how to know them, by the way. Okay, that is listening in a minute. Okay, clearly I'm not going to leave you like this. That would be cruel and unusual punishment. Then once you have your character strengths, positivity, you move into purpose. And purpose is defined as giving the best of yourself for the benefit of others. And if you put these two together, character strengths, positivity plus purpose, you are going to achieve what is called flow in positive psychology. And then you are going to walk into peak performance. I've seen it again and again.
I don't know how to explain it, but once you get to that point, and it's almost a sense of alignment, if you will, with one's true self. You mentioned such key words, the ability to just be you in that moment, not trying to show up or to perform in some way, but to be authentically you. And I feel that I know when you were speaking about purpose, but how it aligns with even helping others, there's something extremely powerful about being able to create something that also serves others or helps others. And I don't know, it's a sense of fulfillment. I can't describe it, quite frankly, but it's powerful. And I could see how that could certainly lead to one's peak performance. But you are your authentic self. And so I think that's incredible. One thing I wanted to ask you, because you really do, you have such extensive experience working in corporate environments with executives, with companies. And I'm curious, as I had mentioned it before, you had worked for Motorola and Lenovo. And so I'm curious when we talk about like high peak performance, like those types of cultures, what are maybe some contributing factors for these large corporations to really perform at such a high level and maintain success? What did you see?
That's fantastic. And actually, you use the right term before fulfillment. Most systems are designed for success, not for fulfillment. That's a critical distinction. Success is achieving an objective. And when that becomes the reason for what you do, even if you achieve the objective, you're going to feel empty. Okay. But when you work from purpose, giving the best of yourself for the benefit of others, and people at the corporation and company come to work every day knowing that they're doing things not just for an objective, but for the betterment of the world, and they are treated and given the chances to be at their best, then they achieve fulfillment. And fulfillment is always in the positive side. Then the first thing I do when I go to a corporation, doesn't matter why they bring me in, and there are zillion different reasons. It doesn't matter. I begin first by doing a character strengths assessment and making sure that everybody in the corporation, in the team, owns the top 5 strengths. It changes everything, Courtney. Loyalty, the way the people feel, the way they feel appreciated, that's all translated into peak performance. This is not about being nice only, which is enough by itself. These are all things that make the company better and achieve what they want. And that's the first thing. And then I bring it into the way companies evaluate people working there. No more performance reviews. What we call today better the feed forward. That's the term we use, feed forward, in which an assessment is done on what the person does well to do it even better. And from that perspective, then we can go into what needs to be improved. Okay, and the results are fantastic. Morale, energy, motivation, loyalty, all really go up.
Absolutely. And, something I was thinking of, I really held on to that fact of when you were reiterating it, but the difference between fulfillment and success, because even in reflection of like just through lived experience, and we could all relate here as far as like when you get a certificate or you get that next degree, how it's something incredible, like over the period of time that you've put in the work, but then afterwards it's exactly like you said, you've achieved the objective, but that deep sense of fulfillment that carries one through their life. I feel like there's a significant difference. And I
Yes.
really do. I, I love how you mentioned that, because I'm sure many people listening could certainly relate. I love how you mentioned the appreciation for a human being. And this kind of like pulls me into my next question, but AI technology at large is coming full force. Already has certainly been here, don't get me wrong. But nevertheless, how important that sense of connection, whether that is in the workplace of the appreciation value of what you are contributing to the ultimate, to the end result in a company, or in one's personal relationships in life of feeling that sense of deep appreciation. And so I want to open up the floor. Your book is called The Human Upgrade. So I would love for you to enlighten our audience about what this book is specifically about.
Yes, this book is being published, by the way, by Maxwell Publishing. Those who know about John Maxwell and leadership, maybe the number one leadership guru in America and maybe the world, that is being published by Maxwell. I have the fortune of having the Maxwell name behind it. And the book is an application of everything I learned about positive psychology to the challenges of bringing technology into your place. And the challenges we are seeing today, Courtney, are uncertainty, anxiety, and even depression. And how can you bring technology, making sure that you upgrade the human, not to be efficient at the technological and a loser at the human side because your company will collapse? And what we know is that as AI becomes more prevalent, then the human is going to become smaller. AI is going to take much and much further territory of what today humans do. And what is going to happen, paradoxically, is that the human is going to become more scarce. The human is going to become a luxury, more scarce, more valuable. Then the companies who upgrade the human at the end of the story are going to be more valuable than those who have the technology. See, technology is going to be shared by all of us. The human is going to be the added value that is going to bring one company to the finish line before the other ones. Then those who invest wisely on the human today are the smart ones. Now, this is not going to happen automatically because AI is a different kind of technology. All the technology before AI competed against what we do, what we did. This technology is competing against who we are. It writes songs, it writes poems, and it's going to become part of our body. It's going to become in us. Then this is a different challenge. People think that it's going to happen naturally, organically, that we are going to, adopt and adapt to AI. It's not going to happen that way. It's going to require a plan of human upgrade. And that's what the book is about. And it has a chapter on the leadership for today, on gratitude, hope. It has a chapter on purpose. It has a chapter how groups need to function today in the AI era. It has a chapter on how to use character strengths in your company. Then everything I had learned on positive psychology is used. Every chapter, Courtney, has case studies. It's full of case studies. And every chapter at the end has exercises that managers and leaders can use at their companies to do what they talk about in the chapter. Then it's very practical. Very, very practical.
No, thank you so much for sharing that. And as you were speaking, there was so many like key points that I want to present because I do feel like this is happening right before our eyes right now as we speak when it comes to AI and the value. Once again, I know I had mentioned it before, but of human connection, the human mind and how unique it holds even against or alongside technology. And what I mean by that is the creativity, the ability to pull different resources together and to think like that, at least at this current moment in time right now. I don't know what the future holds, of course, but those are unique like qualities of the human being. And my question for you is that even as we are developing students, for example, maybe within a college setting, what are certain skills certain traits that we could really be developing to ensure that when these students do enter the workforce, that they are able to thrive in their career?
What is going to distinguish more and more somebody at the company, at the university, at the foundation, not for profit, what is going to distinguish the good one from the bad ones is not efficiency. Efficiency is going to be provided by the system and by technology. What is going to distinguish one from the other is values and character. That's going to be the decisive advantage. And I'm talking all about profit, by the way. People, I am I am with the companies for them to profit more. I am not here a religious leader or ethicist. I work with businesses, and at the end of the day, businesses want to do better. But it happens to be that we are at the juncture today where doing better means having purpose, character, strengths, and values. That's actually, which is an amazing situation. Okay. And then, I promise that everybody would know how to get their strengths and values. Then everybody listening now, Courtney, should take their phone and text the word positive to 33777. Okay. If everybody listening takes a phone and writes positive to 33777, I will send you the 24 character strengths from positive psychology and 2 questions that will help you determine your top 5. Very simple.
Well, I think this is incredible because I love how this conversation is not only within one's career or the workforce, but then also within just being an individual, like a human being in one's personal life, and how that could help them thrive in their personal life. Because I think that it's all interconnected, that when we are thriving in our personal lives, that certainly does play at least a small part is how we show up.
It happens to me all the time. I go to a corporation and I give them a character strengths exercise, and the first thing that they tell me, I'm going to go home and do it with my wife. And then they come or with my adolescent son or daughter. And then they email me. They say, this is the most fantastic thing. I had a conversation with my wife about her character strengths, my character strengths. We discover each other. We rediscover each other. We are a stronger team. It happens to me all the time. Absolutely. This is about being human at your best.
Yes, and I think just to your very point, when you are able, especially today, to be present with another individual, if it is your husband, wife, a significant other, friend, anybody, but when you are there with undivided attention, being willing to listen and to learn about one another, with distractions put to the side, the cell phone and everything, but being one with somebody, I feel like these most basic elements, I feel like, of like human life are becoming more valuable. And it seems like that's what you're mentioning too, is, the focus on like deep human qualities to really become elevated in the era of AI. It just seems very interesting how this is all happening.
Yes, it's you see, AI is going to be good for us if we understand that it's setting us free to be better humans.
As you say this, I'm really curious because you did at the beginning, you were speaking about some keywords here like anxiety, depression, when we talk about uncertainty. And my question for you is, I know within positive psychology, there's 2 like main words here, like when it comes to like optimism and purpose. But when we look at the landscape, and I could understand the anxiety as far as even some companies maybe doing away with certain positions and roles, but how does an individual maintain that sense of composure and that sense of maybe, continuing their own education in the background should something due to maybe technology affect their life? Like, how do they become more optimistic? How do they become more hopeful in life when there is a sense of maybe a little bit of uncertainty what the future looks like?
then we know from studies that the most direct line to fulfillment and happiness is gratitude, is the key character strength. And what we do, and we know this from studies too, that if you at the end of the day sit down with paper, this is not a mental exercise, you need to write it down, and you write 3 things you're grateful for on that day. And it could be something like, I love the bread at lunch, okay? Or I met with my friend who I haven't seen for 2 months, okay? Or I love the kiss my husband gave me in the morning. But it has to be 3 very, very concrete, simple things, Courtney, that you write down for a week. At the end of the day, you are going to have an internal shift from negativity to positivity that may last months after. Because what happened is that when you write down gratitudes of day Monday at night, you already know that you will have to write gratitude on Tuesday at night. And then when you begin Tuesday morning, your mind already shifts into what are the 3 gratitudes that I'm going to find today? And your internal radar shifts from negativity to positivity. It's unbelievable what those little things can do for you.
I think this is fantastic because just like you said, I mean, it's small things that we could do each and every day, just writing 3 things at night. But I do think that there is power in like the pen to paper mentality.
Yes,
like,
because
right?
you sit down, you have to call, we need, the key is that you need to see it outside to become objectively valid.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, almost like an out-of-body experience where you can see it outside and becomes an object that you can appreciate. Okay, and becomes very much more intentional to write it than you just to think it. It's a big difference.
Well, that's so true. And I think even, I mentioned it before, but there's so much noise today and distractions that it's difficult, at least speaking for myself, that, to really hear like with sincere, like clarity of your thoughts. You're right. You kind of have to remove yourself. Like I always talk about walking in nature because I have to be away from the computer or else there's notifications and this and that. And so I believe that exactly what you're saying, being able to write something down and to really think through what you're speaking about. Like you said, the gratitude, the simplicity of everyday things that you have, that you possess in that very moment could really alter like one's mindset. And I think what's really interesting is on this topic, I feel like when people hear sometimes about positivity, I've at least got it like, oh, the toxic positivity, like, is that what it is? And so my question for you is though, if somebody is maybe going through a difficult time in life, how do they alter their mindset to maybe view hurdles or challenges as opportunities to maybe grow?
I hate the name of positive psychology. They did it because they wanted to separate themselves from traditional psychology. But, it's misleading. It's not all about positivity. The pessimistic aspect of the self is very important. Without pessimism, we will have always a misreading of reality. Pessimism grounds you. Okay, then we also work with negative feelings and their importance. Okay, we try to foster the positive and the well-being, but it's not rosy. I want to emphasize that. By the way, I am publishing a book. Just ask me about opportunities. I am publishing another book in Spanish. Okay, I always write a book in English and a book in Spanish. For those listening in Spanish who know Spanish, it's called Una Oportunidad Más, One More Opportunity. And I just got news last week, Courtney, is being published by Random House Penguin, the
Wow.
number one publishing house in the world.
Huge.
It's huge. Yes, huge. It's coming out. That's huge. It's coming out April 2027. It takes a year, but this is a dream for me to be a published author by such a prestigious house. But it's all a book about opportunities. What I say is that when you hear the word opportunity, there is an effect happening in the brain where opportunities is associated with the future. We are waiting for an opportunity. An opportunity will happen. We have like a trigger in the mind where opportunity is associated with a future event. And what I claim in the book that's actually an approach for failure. Opportunity has to be associated with something that is right there in front of you that you're not seeing.
This reminds me of something as you're speaking. I have to laugh because my husband has to sometimes adjust my mindset. And I say this because there's times when I will look at the past and I think about things or I hold on to them as I'm moving into, of course, like where we are today, like present. But then I become very anxious if I look ahead and I think like, well, yikes, like what chapter's coming next? What's going to happen next? And so to be able to live in that present moment.
But the opportunities are in the present, not only live in the present. We have the entire book, and this is, I want to hear, this is groundbreaking. We have inside of the brain a filter. It's called the reticular activation system. It's a series of nerves. It's a filter in the brain. That's the best way to put it. We have every minute around 11 million stimuli that comes to us. The brain decides between 40 and 50 of those 11 million. Then our brain is a selector from 11 million to 40, 50. Now, the key to opportunity is to train the brain to select those 40, 50. And how you do that? Well, you have to read the book, clearly, because that's what the book is about. But your attitude, okay, the way you begin the morning and you say, this is what is going to be for me, the priorities, is key. That the kind of information you let yourself go through your mind, more garbage you let, more the filter becomes poisoned. Then if you do the wrong social media and you look at the terrible news all the time, and you talk with people who are toxic all the time, and you engage with argument with people that go to nowhere, your reticular activation system is going to begin thinking that that's important. And it's going to be filtering in that fewer opportunities. Visualization is important. If you are able to close your eyes and visualize internally where you want to go, your activation reticular system is going to shape itself according to the way you envision things. You have gratitude and begin seeing the world from the positive, your reticular activation system is going to begin filtering the good. We have power to our reticular activation system. And once you do that, then you begin seeing opportunities. And the book is a training. The book is a training of the brain. I give you now in 2 minutes, I gave you a summary of it. Okay. But we have control over what we can filter in.
It's so true because, I mean, literally, I talk about this. This was like one factor. There was a multitude of different factors, but when I was putting Plenty of Positivity together, what actually like drove me in this direction was simply the fact of exactly what you were speaking about. I would open up my internet and on the main page, there was news and it was always, it seemed like kind of negative. And I'm a positive person, Alfredo, and it was starting to even affect me. And so I started internally thinking about this and I thought to myself, well, my goodness, like if it's affecting me in a way, then I'm sure it's probably affecting other people. And so
you need to tell your brain, you basically train your brain to filter what will bring you to the good outcome.
This is
You don't train your reticular activation system, and your filter is going to be filtering in 40 and 50, no winners. Okay, you have control over that. And when you adjust your filter to positivity, then you begin seeing options and opportunities, because those become your eyes.
I think this is, I mean, really, it's a powerful conversation, and it reminds me too, though, the practicality in life. And you had mentioned it before, but if you are around like negative people, how that could also affect, like if it's just constant negativity, and then, like I said, you open up the computer, but being able that you're in charge, almost like, arguably speaking, of your own reality. So,
Yes.
like you said, I mean, you don't have to go on social media 24/7 and digest all the news, that you could protect your mind, because the mind is very, very powerful.
This is the your highest asset in life is your mind. And let me tell you that in some way, the reality inside of us is more important than reality outside of us. The way you construct your inner reality is going actually to determine more what your outside reality is. And we live the life we write in our brain more than the life we experience outside. Life is an interpretation. The way we interpret what we experience is going to become the script of what our life is. If you write in your mind a tragedy out of your experience, then you're going to create the tragedy of life. If you write a creativity story in your mind, you're going to be creative. What happens that people write their story without knowing which kind of writers they are, because they've been writing it the same way for 30 years, and they write in automatic pilot. Then everybody had to stop when they have internal dialogues. When you have an internal dialogue, you just stop for a second, and the question you ask yourself is, what kind of writer am I? That's the most important question you can ask yourself. That's what I do with companies, by the way. Companies also write the stories underneath. Then when I go to companies, I work with leaders. What story for the company are they writing in their emails, in their text, in their meetings? They are writing a story and they don't know it. And that story is more important than the quarterly, was as important as the quarterly, whatever, Excel sheet they're looking at. Then that's what I do with companies too. What story is this company is telling itself? And that's purpose. Because purpose is the story you tell about yourself, about why you are at your best for the benefit of others.
So many questions from this. It made me reflect of my time in a corporate environment. I was in pharmaceutical sales for like a short stint, but just speaking upon my first manager, both managers were fantastic, but I just think about when I was so fresh, so naive, so new to the industry. And I remember my manager was so incredibly positive. I mean, to the point where anything, if I was like asking a question about like the quotas you had to meet, and I'm like, how am I going? He go, like he would cut me in mid sentence. And I just think about that because he was so incredibly positive. He would walk you through, and it was realistic. I think that was another part of it too, was that I know myself, I could get really anxious when I see something at first glance, but it's like the difference between when you see something and your response, like kind of digesting it. And granted, I was like very young, I wasn't mature, but I was like, there's no way. And he would like calm me down. But I just say this because I do believe that there is something very powerful when you are dealing with a group of people. You think of team dynamics, even in sports. If one person is toxic, it could be like a cancer that spreads on the team.
I work a lot with team dynamics. That's my specialty. But I can tell you, Courtney, that most of the wrong, the toxic team dynamics is because people do not know their character strengths and they had not been given a space and process by which to contribute the best of themselves. You know, I've been reading lately on restaurants, the best restaurants in the country. Disney, when Pixar bought Disney, okay, Disney was in disarray. And what's happening is that executives were managing the work of directors. And when Pixar came, turned things around, directors manage the creative process and executives guide and supervise. They turn things around and they give to directors more freedom. That's how Pixar and Disney became such a success. You know something? No laid offs. This was able to be done with the same teams. This was, okay, they achieved, this wasn't an issue of changing people. It was an issue of changing the process and giving people the creative space to be the best they could be for the benefit of others. Then that's a great story. No, clearly some people were fired, okay, but basically the teams were kept intact. The culture changed.
I was just going to say that how powerful a culture can be as far as the productivity that you witness through that culture. And when you were speaking, it was reminding me of micromanagement, like you said, the freedom that they had. And I think more so than ever today, the need for innovation at such a rapid pace. I mean, we are seeing the innovation process, it seems like it's constantly turning over so quickly. The need for new things. I mean, with technology, it's escalating the process of everything, it seems like. And so for a human being to have that sense of creativity, that spark, it really does begin with the culture and what environment they're in.
It's all about culture, and culture is story, and it's myth, the story you tell. Okay, I work with companies and they went, some of them, through many expenditures in money to change the culture of the place. And I read the papers and whatever was produced out to create culture change. And I don't see a lot of storytelling on values. Okay, these are the values of the company. It's all about how you tell the story. Okay, you have values. Okay, you have key concepts, you have players. But the question is, who is the hero? What is the quest? Okay, what is the challenge? It's all about, when Microsoft was really doing poorly, what they call the 10 years of disaster of Microsoft, and they appointed Nasella, the CEO, who changed the entire thing. The first thing he did, he sent an email to everybody, and the email is a storytelling with the values of the company. And that was the beginning of the change, the right story, inspiring story.
Question for you. What is it about storytelling that's so powerful? Is it the fact of an ability to relate to another human being? Like, what is that key factor that differentiates going down that path of storytelling?
Stories are the DNA of culture. We are made out of stories. We are the story about who we are. We are a story about what happened to us every minute. We are interpreters. That's the number one thing we are. We interpret everything we see. We try to find meaning in what we do. And meaning is found not in logic and philosophy, although I have a PhD in philosophy, by the way. I love philosophy. And I spent 10 years teaching philosophy at the university. But we are not made out of logic and systems. We are made out of what this means to me. And that's the number one question that somebody working at a corporation coming every morning has to be able to answer with quality. What this work means for me and what the work of this company means for the world. And if those questions are not being relevant, people will burn out, have no loyalty. And there is no company who cannot answer the question about how to let people be their best for the betterment of others. Okay, because at the time that companies were created, I can tell you that every company, the person who thought about it first, thought about being successful, but thought about solving a problem. And that problem is at the core of the existential or life of somebody. And you had to go back to that initial point in which somebody said, Eureka, people are having a problem and I am going to make their lives better. That's lost, the company's lost.
As I just reflect as you're speaking, it seems logical that storytelling would be like a key element for a company. But then at the same time, it really is. It's like, it's the values, it's the ability to align the role that the individual is in the company to that end result, that vision. What is the ultimate vision for the company? And how do I, as an individual, as an employee, if you will, situate myself in this company to where I am of value? I'm producing something each and every day to get to that end result. That's what I was.
That's why Caterpillar sends executives to the field to see how the farmer uses the tractor, and why directors and heads of Caterpillar in their addresses to the people that work in the company always refer to some specific farmer who's using the tractor in that field and their family. If you cannot make the connection, it doesn't matter if you work in the accounting department of Caterpillar, to give an example. You cannot think that what you are doing is going to help a specific person to have a easier life working the land, that is going to produce food for other people. You are not going to have peak performance, I can tell you. And if you have peak performance, it's going to be temporary until somebody else comes and offers that person a place with the same pay, but with relevance attached to it.
It makes me think too, like if somebody's starting a company, startup in general, but it's about pairing up. Like I said, it's not just a description, but it's sitting down with that individual who's been hired and spending time with them to see the greater vision as to their contributing role. Because like you said, if they do not see that and they simply see tasks day in and day out, but they don't look at that larger vision, if you will, or like through a larger lens of what is going to happen 5-10 years down the road with my contribution, I feel like that almost is where the purpose situates itself.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Absolutely. That's exactly, and I am very optimistic because I work with Gen Z and the younger generations. They want to do well, they want to make a lot of money, but they're much more involved in the social aspect of what they do. And if they found that what they are doing doesn't have an impact in the world, they don't like it. There is a demand in the younger generations of a connection between what they do that has to bring success and has to bring fulfillment. And I'm working with a lot of organizations of young people who are actually serial entrepreneurs, the most successful people that you can believe, I mean, at their age, and they're all connected with each other to, okay, how can we use the resources to make a better world? I see it happening more and more and more. I am very optimistic, actually, on the business world of the upcoming generations.
That's fascinating that you mentioned that, because I think it's incredible to understand or just to digest how many generations currently are in the workforce and how each generation has their unique sets of values, perspectives of life, and how we could all come together to honestly just to learn from one another. I mean, I think as you mentioned, Gen Z, the social aspect, but the technological knowledge. I mean, they grew up with these
Yes.
devices. exist, but how we could learn. And my question to you is holding on to the Gen Z generation that's entering like the workforce, some of which, of course, already in. But when we think about rapid technological advances, being able to like be resilient and to develop that sense of purpose earlier on, is there any advice that you could provide that particular generation to be able to thrive in what right now from the outside looking in looks maybe a little bit uncertain with the rapid change, but where they could actually capitalize and excel in it?
No, I think, generally the ones I am connected to, they are in the right track. They're much more socially conscious than other generations. Then I see it actually going in the right direction. You know, you write the story of your company. The story you write first is the most decisive one.
Yeah.
It is easier to write the right story first than to change the wrong one later. Okay, then very early on, you have to begin with exercises of why are we here? What is our higher purpose? What are the motivations behind? What problem are we fixing in the world? What is our ideal customer and how can we make their lives better? Okay, then begin writing the story of the company. Even when you begin, you're crazy, you don't sleep, you're raising capital and, et cetera, et cetera. And then, but one study, this is very important, Courtney. I read a study recently that startup companies are higher on optimism than established companies. Then when you begin something, you have an optimist advantage for a while. Then when things settle down and you begin confronting other problems and, then optimism decreases. It's a natural thing. But at least at the beginning, you have the optimism variable higher for you. Use it to write an optimist story.
You know what that reminds me of? It reminds me of the keyword momentum. That when you start, just like you said, with something like the mentality, the vibe, if you will, of the group is very optimistic, but how that could really pull someone through difficult times, even like you said, which is so true. I mean, you launch something, it's excitement, it's high-fiving, and then it's back to business. And then start, maybe some challenges start, popping up. But I think about that too in like a sports setting of we see teams all the time when they start gaining momentum, the other team's like, yikes, this isn't good because
Right.
they capitalize on it.
Resilience is not the art of coming back. Resilient is the art of bouncing higher than where you fell. Okay, that's true resilience. Then when you fail, is the greatest opportunity to learn more about yourself than before the failure. If you go, this is what I work a lot with companies. If you go through a failure and you do not come out of it wiser than before, then you wasted your failure. You cannot waste failure. That's the biggest waste. And you're going to fail, guaranteed. Then what I work with companies is to create a system to maximize learning from failure. And that system has to be in place, what we call psychological safety in body psychology. You have to work with teams where failure is not punished, but failure, there is psychological safety to risk, fail, and learn. And that has to be ingrained in the culture. Risk, fail, and learn. There are going to be many risk and gain. Not everything is going to be a failure, but risk, fail, and learn. That's the pattern. If you can create a culture of that, the sky is the limit.
I agree with you 100% because I just think about how in such a rapid changing landscape that we're seeing right now in the workforce, and this could be amongst many different industries and disciplines, but how, like I said, the need for innovation because everything's just so quick. And then you add technology on it but to where a team really does need that space for creativity, but then also the implementation, and to witness, is that implementation of whatever it is that you're working on, is it successful, is it not? But to have a manager or to have a leader that is willing to see the big picture, that, like you said, that if in fact the team ends up perceived failure, if you will, like whatever that may look like in the team, but that they are willing to digest that and to keep moving forward. Because I'm so happy that you mentioned this, like resilient leadership, how important that is going to be right now and moving forward with AI.
Yes. Then, something interesting about the AI that has to do with teams and resilience. With AI, content is going to be more available than ever before. Then those who know more are not going to have the upper hand, because knowledge is going to be readily available. Then who's going to win? If knowledge is there for everybody, who is the winner here? The one who asks the right questions. This is going to be a question-driven world. The best people for questions are going to be the smartest ones. And to do that, you need psychological safety. A team where people are not afraid to ask questions. I tell you, that's going to distinguish, I write this in my book, by the way, on the team section. You have to train people to question, because content is not anymore advantage. Question, write the right question, it will point you to the right content. That's the skill we need to develop.
This is so true. And you know what it reminds me of? I have to ask you this, but obviously within academia, things are changing. And I do think like education is very unique in the sense when you look at AI and the effect that it could potentially have on education. But we're looking at, especially younger generations, how important it is to hold on to that critical thinking factor. Because as you mentioned, ChatGPT, the information is there. There's no doubt about it. But the ability to, like you said, to ask the right questions. I have to ask you, like, even if one desires to pursue a PhD or just in general at large, I'm just going to open up the floor to you. The value of education, like where should we be focusing on with AI now starting to come into play? But holding on to that critical thinking factor. And if somebody does, if they want to pursue a PhD, where is the value like within that PhD today with technology?
Yeah, by the way, going against AI in education is like going against calculators. Yes. And the calculators came out. Okay. It's supposed to make us give us do things faster, deeper, more proficiency. Okay. Then that's for me, AI used well is calculators. Okay. Then yes, we need more inquisitive minds that know how to ask questions and have critical minds. And we need good humans. This is going to set us free to ask more existential questions, more questions about what is life about. Okay, what is the purpose of life? What are the values? What is community? Okay, if we just defer all this tedious work of doing spreadsheets to now, do people need to know how to write themselves? Yes, I think that we need to should we learn how to read? Yes. Okay, there's things that are always going to be there, but I am working on some educational endeavors, and I am the voice on committees that is less about acquiring content and more about acquiring skills for critical mind and human spirit. Okay, that's where I am now.
I think this is such a fascinating topic because it's interesting. Like we don't really know where the future's headed, but the educational value today, I agree with you wholeheartedly that to like turn your attention like or your back towards AI is not going to be bright, especially for students who need the the capacity to learn about it while they are in college, to then enter into the workforce, having ideas as to how they could utilize it for efficiency, for effectiveness, for corporations, should they go, of course, a private sector route. Yeah.
If everybody at school is plagiarizing and they can use AI to plagiarize, it's because we are not asking the right questions.
Not asking the right questions. Okay.
If we are asking them to write an essay on something that is pure content, okay, I teach a class on positive psychology, okay, the university level. Then they have to write every semester 3 or 4 essays. Then the essays have a couple of questions about, do you know the content? But the most important question is, what do you think about it? What are the implications using this? What are the human values involved? Which kind of person this creates? Those are and those are more difficult to plagiarize. You could plagiarize everything, but those I see when that plagiarized. I see it immediately. Those, and I said, if you don't answer those questions well, and you answer the first ones well, you're going to fail. Those are the questions that count.
Well, and it's so true. And it brings me back to the value of critical thinking, that you are able to take information, you are able to observe it, analyze it, look at different angles, to be able, like you said, to get to the thought process of what could be the implication, the creativity of pulling together different resources and being able to come up with a potential, like I said, implication of what could happen, but more so along the lines, it's very effective and just information gathering all, from the internet. But it's just fascinating to me where this is going to take companies, where it's going to shift education, and how professors even teach in a class.
Yes. Oh, yes. We are in the middle of the revolution that we do not yet even understand the ramifications. I just was last year at the conference in San Francisco about technology and the human, and I went to a few lectures by doctors. I couldn't even understand what they were talking about. But I couldn't. I was sitting there and said, okay, that is going to make us healthier. That's good for it. But, don't ask me to repeat it.
No, it's true. And to your point, I think especially within the medical industry, and medicine itself, it's definitely going to have positive effects and impacts. I do believe. I try to open up my mind to like different podcasts of listening when it comes to specifically education and how, like, what is that shift going to look like? It just fascinates me. But Dr. Borodowski, Alfredo, I'll call you Alfredo. I keep calling you.
Yes, please.
But I would love for you to round out this amazing podcast episode with a positive message or a positive quote for our community.
Yes, people ask me, can you summarize all you said? Yes. Move from fixing to nourishing. Move from fixing to nourishing. We are in a culture where we're fixed by our parents with a lot of love, trying to fix us. We're fixed by our coaches, fixed by our professor, fixed by the system, fixed by our managers. And we need to nourish each other, meaning try to help us become the best at what we already do well. Okay, will bring us much farther than trying to fix us into something that we are not good at. That's my message, Courtney.
Absolutely fascinating. So focusing on nurturing. And I have to reiterate for our listeners, and just so I have this correctly, but to text 33777, is that correct?
With the word positive.
With the word positive. Okay.
Positive. And they're going to get the 24 character strengths of positive psychology, and they're going to get 2 questions that are going to help them determine the top 5. And, and if they want, they can sign up to get information about when my book is going to come out. It's going to be released.
Absolutely. And a big congratulations just on all of your success. Like you just mentioned, I understand, yes, within your book, but ultimately, I mean, just to be able to come onto this podcast, I have learned so much about positivity, but then also how it infiltrates into our workplace, how it infiltrates into our personal lives, and how it could really make us better individuals each and every day. So, Alfredo, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you, Courtney. Great questions. We talked a lot and we covered a lot and feel happy. And I hope that my goal of one person at least knowing their character strengths happens through your podcast.
Absolutely. And I know that that's going to happen because it's already impacted me. So thank you so much, Alfredo.